I think it is safe to say that as the years go by, loot boxes are becoming a more and more antiquated form of monetization. That's because they're becoming more of a liability. The more people complain about these, the more government officials encroach about how loot boxes are essentially gambling. It's riskier for game companies to implement this stuff, so we're seeing more and more companies sort of pull out and try to implement other monetization systems instead. And this is why Rocket League, it would seem, have decided to pull out of this loot box monetization trend. The initial announcement that Rocket League would be getting rid of loot boxes was made all the way back in August 6th, 2019. And the headline reads, "Crates leaving Rocket League later this year." And the statement that Psyonix provided on that front reads, "Here at Psyonix and Epic Games as a whole, we are dedicated to creating the best possible experience for our players all over the world. In pursuit of that goal, later this year, we will remove all paid randomized crates from Rocket League, replacing them with a system that shows the exact items you're buying in advance." So at a glance, this seemed great. This is something that people have wanted. Rocket League is sort of infamous for its loot box system, and it involves, the crates and the keys, and that's one sort of sour point of what is otherwise a really fun game. And so a lot of people are looking forward to seeing how Rocket League will implement a fairer system where players can pick and choose what they want rather than have to spin the slot machine. And then a few months later, on October 1st, they explained what this system would entail. So it reads right here that a game update in December would introduce blueprints, a new type of drop that will replace crates. When you receive a blueprint, it will show you exactly what item you can create from it for a set price. Once they're in your inventory, blueprints will allow you to pay to create the item it offers and receive it immediately. Or you can leave it in your inventory and choose to create the item later. And then with that comes the introduction of an item shop as well as credits. And credits is the currency that will be used to unlock the blueprints. So keys are being replaced with credits, and the loot boxes, the crates, are being replaced with blueprints. It states right here that if you already own keys, those will automatically be converted into credits, and if you own crates, those will be converted into blueprints of the same series. And then on November 20th, Psyonix detailed the conversion rate between credits and dollars. So right here it reads that the shop will include packages of 500 credits at $5 all the way up to 6,500 credits for $50. So this is the best bang for buck, but generally it can be agreed that essentially 100 credits is equal to $1. And then as far as the conversion from credits to keys go, the more keys you own, the more credits per key you'll get. So at 50 or more keys, you can get up to 130 credits per key that's converted. But basically it is generally agreed upon that one key is equal to 100 credits, or that one key is basically the equivalent of $1. So with all that in mind, that brings us to today's story. You're going to see a lot of headlines talking about how the Rocket League community is not happy about the game's new monetization system. And that's because the loot boxes have been replaced with a monetization system that is actually less rewarding, where you have to spend more money to get some of the things that you want. So this GameSpot article stated right here, noting that customization upgrades are now prohibitively expensive and much harder to get your hands on. So if you go to Reddit, you'll see a lot of people talking about this. So this right here is a Reddit post that has thousands of upvotes. The headline reads, "Prices, that moment when it's £12 for an import." And then right here we have another Reddit user who highlights this issue more prominently. This reads, yes, 16K for Lime Pyros, which you used to be able to get for 0.5. Now this is actually 1,600, not 16,000, but the fact still remains that items that used to be dirt cheap are now super expensive in terms of how much money you have to spend to get them. With the loot box system, there was a random chance of getting certain items, but some of this stuff were rewarded commonly enough that if you went to the trading market, which there is one in Rocket League, you could get these for dirt cheap. And now because the prices have been jacked up, these items are much harder to get. And perhaps the best explanation of this entire issue can be found on this Reddit post with 4,000 upvotes. This reads, "If you don't understand, what's messed up is that previously you'd buy 23 keys, use them on 23 crates, and you would get 23 items. Now you have to buy 23 keys worth of credits to get one item. Yeah, this will not work. People will get infinitely pissed off. So what people expected out of this update was that Rocket League would retain the pricing model from the loot box days, but remove the randomized element so people can pick out the things they want or have an easier path towards picking the items that they desire. But what they did instead was, yes, they removed the randomized element, they removed the loot boxes, but jacked up all the prices and tipped the scales all the way to the other side of the spectrum. There's a caveat to the randomization element getting removed. Now everything just costs so much more, and it's to the point where it doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel like the monetization system was improved. The whole point of removing the randomization element is that you will be able to spend less on getting the things that you want, but in reality, you're just spending a lot more. And while there are certain rare items that now you can certainly pick out, whereas before you'd have to keep spinning that slot machine, a lot of the more common items, those prices have been jacked up. And most people, from what I'm seeing, feel as though being able to pick out specific items, that new added advantage is not worth how much the prices have been jacked up across the board and how weird the pricing is and how you can spend all this money and only get one item, whereas before you could spend a decent amount of money and get a bunch of items at once. Here's a great way that one Reddit user framed this whole situation. This post, a response to the thread right here, reads as follows. I didn't spend money on crates because I didn't like gambling in games. Now I'll not spend money on blueprints because I don't want to pay the equivalent of an entirely new game for one item. If the prices were 1/10 of the current prices, I would consider it. If they were 1/5, I would consider it when drunk. A good monetization system allows you to pick out what you want at a reasonable price. But with Rocket League, whereas before you had the gambling elements that didn't allow you to pick what you want, now that swings to the other side where, yes, you can pick out what you want, but the prices are so ludicrous that they're just not worth spending money in. And that amounts to a monetization system that is somehow less rewarding than the previous loot box system that this game initially implemented. And then here's a sentiment that was expressed by another Reddit user. This headline reads, "More people need to see this," and then here is a screenshot of another post that reads, "By the way, everyone, this is a classic business tactic. They know the prices are outrageous and have released them that way. Expected outrage will happen, then Psyonix and Epic will lower the prices, look like the good guys, and give you a second thought for purchasing these items. Don't." Yeah, this is actually not uncommon at all. We have seen plenty of instances in the past where a developer or a publisher will take 2 steps forward over the line when it comes to monetization and then take a step back and have people perceive that they backed away, that they listened to feedback, when in reality all they've done is take 1 step forward over the line. And that constant 2 step forward, 1 step back maneuver is how the goalpost of monetization keeps getting pushed forward and forward, inch by inch. While we don't know for sure how the Rocket League developers will respond to this, they certainly do have to respond at some point because the backlash is pretty universal, and I'm wondering if they'll be able to pull this back to a point where it really does feel fair, or is this going to feel like a half step back, like they took 1 step back after 2 steps forward. All Rocket League needs to do is maintain the general pricing model from the crates days, but remove the randomization. That's it. That's what this update was supposed to be about. It wasn't supposed to tip the scale so far the other way that it ultimately makes no difference, that it ultimately still maintains a monetization system that is not ideal. And then to make matters worse, whereas before you could decide exactly how much money you wanted to spend on in-game items, now because of the way the credits are tiered and structured, you are gonna come across situations where even if you just want to spend $1 on this one thing, you'll actually have to spend $5 because the smallest bundle that you can purchase is 500 credits for $5. So this is something that PC Gamer highlighted here. This reads, "Now your $1 will net you only the least desirable item, and you'll still need to shell out a minimum of $5 for 500 credits, the smallest bundle." And then another example that PC Gamer highlighted reads, "One of the shop's current featured items is a car that's being sold for 1,200 credits, which is technically just over $10, but you'll actually need to buy 2 bundles of credits, 500 and 1,100, if your balance is empty, costing you around $15. this is a scheme that's pretty common. So if we look at the pricing model for the credits, you'll see that there's no way to spend a specific amount of dollars on a specific amount of credits. They purposely bundle in-game currency this way so that they can price things just a little above the threshold of these bundles, and so you have to shell out a little more money to get the extra credits required to be able to afford the item that you want. One important quote to highlight here from PC Gamer is, now your $1 will net you only the least desirable items. In the previous system, $1 would net you a key, and you could use that key to open a crate that could potentially yield a rarer, more highly desired item. Now with this new system, $1, yes, you can pick out how you want to use that dollar, but that $1 will probably get you something crappy because all the prices across the board for all of these items have been jacked up. So a lot of people feel as though spending $20 on the previous crate system would give you a whole lot more. It would be better bang for your buck than if you were to spend $20 now on just a single item that you can pick out but are vastly overpriced, whereas before $1 could net you some valuable things. And so the Rocket League community is pretty pissed right now, and then there's also the trading market. All of that's been marred because the pricing for a lot of these items are so weird now. The economy has sort of been turned over its head, and so trading is messed up according to a lot of people out there. Just all around, there's barely anyone who is actually happy about this update. What was supposed to be a fix for the randomized element, what was supposed to be a step forward in terms of monetization, is actually a step back in a lot of regards due to how far they went with jacking up prices for items that shouldn't be this expensive. And a lot of people are pointing the finger at Epic. This happened after Epic bought Rocket League developer Psyonix, and so they're wondering what the hell's going on here. I don't know how much Epic contributed to this new monetization system versus how much Psyonix contributed to it, but either way, the way this is being perceived is that it isn't a means to create a fairer monetization system, just one that is different, one that is less legally scrutinizable with encroaching government regulation. And I've said this before, but you can still have an awful monetization system without implementing loot boxes, and that's what we're looking at here. There are plenty of other games out there that avoid loot boxes and that allow for direct purchases, but find a way to just really gouge players and price things unreasonably and find gameplay ways to lure players into the shop, so on and so forth, ways to pressure players and manipulate players. And with this, it's just the prices are unreasonable. That's really the main factor here that needs to be addressed. But until that happens, let me know in the comments below what your take is on this whole situation with Rocket League. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.